out of this committee without making one and walked back to my office, but it has since come to my attention that, in fact, we had agreed that we were not going to discuss what had transpired at the meeting, but it has come to my attention that the chairman has since betrayed the process by disclosing our deliberations within moments after walking out of the committee. And he has implied that there was an agreement of the committee not to disclose the report. That is an untrue, to the extent that that suggests that the committee was in agreement or that we had a consensus on that, that is inaccurate.
So that's the ranking Democratic member of the Ethics Committee. We previously reported on the network that the Ethics Committee, which is a bipartisan committee, ultimately voted, because the Republican members all were in lockstep here, they voted to block the ethics report into Matt Gaetz's allegations, which involved child sex trafficking with pretty specific allegations, Venmo payments, receipts, checks, and a lot of other stuff, drug abuse, as well as obstruction of justice. The MAGA Republicans came out and started bragging and implying, as you heard there, that this was a consensus. This was some agreement of the Ethics Committee. That's not the case. The Republicans blocked it. Donald Trump made posts on his social media platform, essentially instructing the Republicans to block the release of the report. And Matt Gaetz was basically running around the halls of Capitol Hill today with J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's vice president-elect, Marco Rubio, and others, just kind of laughing and making it clear that he thought that the ethics report was not going to be released. Let me bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Fed YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast, and now the Talking Feds Substack. I read Harry's first post on that Talking Feds Substack, and it was one of the most compelling articles, and I'm just excited for future Substacks there. So everybody, you can check out the Talking Feds Substack. Harry, what do you make of all of this? You heard the ranking member right there, a Democratic Congresswoman Wild, but what do you make of all of this?
Yeah, so look, first, I think that the story about whether it's going to come out, the Ethics Committee report, is not finished yet. We learned yesterday somebody has hacked it. These things have a way, a kind of hydraulic force of getting out. But to my mind, it really doesn't matter. It's being way overplayed. This only works for Trump and Gaetz if it's part of a 1-2 punch. This smothering the Ethics Committee report, and they at least have some argument for it because he resigned from Congress just to prevent it. And second, cutting off a background investigation. The background investigation that any nominee for a cabinet should get, a full field investigation. I've had them. They skip no details, beginning with a long interview with Matt Gaetz himself. Well, they'll ask him, okay, what about this woman? What about this use of MDMA? Any false statement is a felony. So I think if they're smart, the Republicans, who still have a little steel in their spine, and the Dems should just say, fine, we'll see what happens with the Ethics Committee report, whether it'll come out. Let's now go to the normal situation and have a background investigation. And you're right, J.D. Vance is shepherding around Matt Gaetz. It's one thing to say, hey, he's a good guy. It's another thing to say, and therefore you can completely short circuit the process that it always applies to new cabinet nominees, has to apply to everyone. The background investigation, the report, the hearing, the Democrat questioning, that's what will really prove way more damning to Gaetz. I think my best guess is if they stand their ground there and say that's what we're going to do, and Mitch McConnell and others have suggested it, you'll see Mr. Gaetz withdraw. It's just something that I just don't think he could survive. But in any event, I think that's the smart focus and where they should put the leverage. So to the extent they're celebrating, I think the jujitsu move is just to say, okay, fine, here we'll submit the nomination and start the FBI process. And then I think Trump and Vance and Gaetz will all be like, uh-oh, wait a minute.
Well, there's the expression that sometimes the cover up is worse than what's ultimately being covered up. I don't think that's the case here. I mean, we're talking about child sex trafficking. Sometimes it's like underage women. No, I mean, you're talking about children that could be being sex trafficked, young girls. And the fact that Republicans in the House of Representatives are taking the position that this should not be disclosed publicly, though, at least as it relates to them, they're in many ways adopting the conduct onto themselves. And then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene posting, look, if you release this report, MAGA Republican members of the House, this is what she wrote. She goes, I've got dirt on you. I know about your communications with Epstein and others like Epstein. I've lodged complaints. I know about your sexual harassment. And she's not saying, she says, to my Republican colleagues in it. So this is, Harry, I mean, before Donald Trump even takes office, you've got this happening right now. And again, it's like, how do we get here where you have this being normal? Like, how is this even a thing? I mean, you remember back in the days when you were a leader in the DOJ, or when you had to be vetted when you were the U.S. attorney in the Western Pennsylvania. I mean, there were Clinton's picks, and I think Bush's picks. Some people were kicked off because it turned out they had someone who worked at the House who didn't have their papers. They were undocumented. That was enough. You can't be confirmed.
2 AG candidates went down because of that. Can you imagine if that had just been hidden? First, you're totally right. What a cesspool we have of now, Republicans fighting off Republicans. But let me just say, we've talked about the ethics committee. The federal investigation had to do with, because not everything's a federal crime, and for this to have been a federal crime, it had to be the trafficking of one underage girl. Looks like that did happen. We have a witness who has said she actually, I believe, saw Matt Gaetz having sex with this girl. But this is really just a sort of subset of it. We have in all of these things, including the older girls, women, whatever, however you want to call them, we have A, prostitution, which he has said he's never, ever done, and B, like really serious of the sort that would absolutely keep anyone from getting a low-level job at the DOJ. Schedule 1 controlled substance use, MDMA, just all the time, open and notorious as a sort of lifestyle choice, under traditional rules of the road. And I not only did some vetting of judicial candidates and underwent them myself, but actually worked on what should be the standards at the DOJ. People go to law school and then proceed to promiscuously use Schedule 1 controlled substances. They never get in the door of the DOJ. And all that means an occasion for potential blackmail by someone, the AG, who has access to all national security material. Under any traditional standard, this would be, disqualified 8 ways from Sunday. The last time something like this happened was a guy who was drunk, John Tower, and the Senate rejected him because of just his conduct. So I'm totally, I think it's a sort of a false path, all this focus on the ethics committee report, though it's certainly clear that the Republicans and Mike Johnson himself put in the fix here. But just say, all right, you want to go by the book? Great, let's go by the book, and we'll start your FBI process tomorrow. That would give the Senate all the information they need, the American people all the information they need, and I think Matt Gaetz would not take that deal, and if he does, he's going to have quite a bruising FBI interview where he'll probably get a very massive attack of, I don't remember, itis. But that's what should happen here. That's the judgment and the information everyone, the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, need to make a judgment about whether he is, both of character and in national security risk qualified to be the highest federal law enforcement officer in the land.
And look, if you want to think about this as, is there a silver lining here? Trump spending whatever capital he has right now, putting his energy behind people like Matt Gaetz, child sex trafficking, and we haven't even scratched the surface of Peter Hegseth, Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense, who has credible sex assault allegations and hush money payments. RFK Jr., who, in addition to saying that water makes your kids gay and wanting to ban fluoride, he has sexual harassment allegations against him. I think 38% of Trump's cabinet has serious sexual assault allegations against him. RFK Jr.'s responses happened a long time ago. I did crazy stuff in the past. I just don't remember. Right. And then you've got Tulsi Gabbard. So we'll cover all of that.
I want to maybe do the counterpoint to what you just said, Ben, and then let's move on, which is, I'm a little worried that some of these guys are so outlandish and so crazy that Gaetz could go down, and that could make what would otherwise be unacceptable candidates look like, okay, we've had our sacrificial lamb and our bloodletting. So I don't know if that's a strategy overall, but they're all so out there that, you know, you could imagine a couple of them being cut loose and still winding up with quite the crazy government of sort of, I talked about Gaetz as the anti-AG. I think RFK is the anti-HHS commissioner, and, the list goes on.
These are people who are not even capable or competent to hold these positions. So again, I guess as a glass half full guy, even assuming if some of them got through, they'd likely be so incompetent right away in being able to even perform the function that rather than having someone who was kind of quiet behind the scenes, but a brilliant tactician who knows how to pull the levers to enact Trump's dangerous agenda versus these kind of cartoonishly clownish, no offense to clown characters. I mean, you all weigh that. But Harry's got the new Substack that you should all check out if you've got Substack. I read your first piece, Harry. It got sent to me. It was absolutely incredible. So check that out. And then the Harry Litman YouTube channel is Talking Feds on YouTube, and it's Talking Feds Substack as well. So check those out. Harry, thanks for joining.
Thanks a lot, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe here as well.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.